This is arguably the most epic 3 hours you'll have in a theater this year. I kid you not. Let's talk about it. What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking Kalki 2989 AD. I just learned about this film thanks to the prelude and those videos. You can check out those on the Burke Reacts YouTube channel. And we're going to have an extensive discussion on the Movie Mode Pod YouTube channel podcast feed later on. But first, what is this movie all about? So tired of the oppressive confines of his homeland and the perilous life of a bounty hunter, Bhairava yearns for a more comfortable existence in the complex. His quest for a new life inadvertently entangles him with a group of rebels dedicated to freeing humanity from the grip of malevolent forces. The cast across the board is great, but Prabhas, our movie star, is the one we have to talk about here. And oh my God.
I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine.
I've seen Salar. I know the type of presence he can have, but I haven't seen Bahubali, and everyone says that's maybe his best performance to date. Until they see Kalki, because I genuinely got so excited when he showed up, not only because he showed up, but what they were doing to enhance his character from start to finish. Not only is his arc interesting, not only does he make a world of a difference with his presence, but his role in the movie, his arc, and this is a non-spoiler review, we'll talk about this more in the spoiler review, is one that I did not anticipate whatsoever, because I found myself continuing to want to root for him, but the decisions that he is making, and keep in mind, they give him great reason to make these decisions, it's very Han Solo-esque, and I'm going to make comparisons throughout this review. Again, I've been watching cinema from India for a couple of years now, but I've only seen 2 to 3 per year, and I'm wanting to get more into it, so the comparisons I'm going to make, they're Hollywood-esque. I see Dune in this film, Mad Max, Elysium, risky decision-making like certain Star Wars properties, not recent Star Wars properties, and these epic, fantastical elements. I mean, when we would arrive at certain places in this movie, it gave me a similar feeling to when I was watching Lord of the Rings for the first time. Now, I'm not comparing this to that movie. Obviously, that's a flawless trilogy, but it made me feel like that. The sense of scale across the board, and the fact that it's big future sci-fi mixed with this historical and very personal, almost themed around religion type of thing that our director, Nag Ashwin, was saying in these prelude videos. Essentially, I'm going to take the future that we haven't seen yet, the end of this time period, and I'm going to sculpt a story out of it that's based in and around the history that they have, but also includes numerous fantastical and massive and bombastic elements. I think that's the word to use for this movie, that just make it feel like you're encapsulated into this world the moment you step into it and by the time the credits roll. And that's what a movie like this has to do.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why he's there, me.
So I mentioned the Mad Max comparisons, Kashi, this desolate world that we're living in where people are struggling to even find water. But right in the middle of this one massive city, the only place left where people can go is the complex, and everyone wants to go to the complex. And our main character in Bhairava, he is attempting to gather all of the things that he needs to gather and get the money necessary to go to that place, because that's where everyone wants to be, or at least that's where all the rich people tell us we need to be. And most people spend their entire lives trying to get there, inevitably do not get there, don't even get to taste or experience it. And that's what our main character, played by Prabhas, wants to do. At least he's one of the main characters, because that's not the only story happening here.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
And within the complex, there are villainous entities at play. Now, not everyone within the complex is bad, because some people are being held there against their will, and there are some very important people there, some 80 being one of those characters, and she plays an integral role where this is going. And if you are aware of the lore surrounding the story, you probably know where that is going. But the villains here, while, some of them weren't very well fleshed out, the performances are good. I wish I would have gotten more from some, but there is one in particular that's like a mix of Baron Harkonnen and the Emperor from Star Wars, a little bit of Snoke in there, Jared Leto's character from Blade Runner 2049, where the things are surrounding him, and I got all of that from this one character. And again, I'm taking things that I've seen before, familiar concepts from films, and applying it to this movie, so in that way it's kind of familiar. It's familiar, but it's also brand new. It's such a distinct and individual product that feels like a one-of-a-kind experience while you're watching, especially in a big Cinemark XD theater. And I got that from the villainous side of the story every time we were in the complex. Now, tonally, this movie goes up and down. You get some terrifying and bleak, dark things happening at points, and then you go back to Prabhas, and you got the music that's elevating his character, and the silly moments, and the funny characters, and the little bits, and sometimes it feels all over the place, but there's something about some of these Tollywood films that I have seen before that just work, and they bring it all together beautifully. And even though it does get cheesy, and you do get the one-liners, and some things that Prabhas does in this movie, other people would do it, not be able to pull it off. In this film, it's such a distinct experience. I actually really enjoyed myself. You know, you look at American movies, and during these moments, they would take themselves way too seriously, and they wouldn't crack a smile, and it just tries to be something that it's not. These movies, probably thanks to Nagashwan, our director, they know exactly what they're doing. They do not take themselves seriously, neither do our characters, and that works really well. And that gets us to some of the more important points of this movie. Our other main character, Ashwathama, he gets the backstory at the beginning. Now, I had some CGI issues to this backstory. One thing in particular that I'll dive deeper in spoilers, but yeah, it wasn't great, even though it kind of works, but it didn't look very good. His presence, what they do with him visually, yes, the performance is amazing, but the imposing figure that he is, and when he speaks, the way it carries through the theater, that's one thing about this film too. Maybe it's where I saw it in XD. The dialogue carries beautifully, and it doesn't get cut off by some of the loud music happening in the background, so I loved that decision. Also, the sound effects and the sound design as a whole, genuinely, if it weren't for Dune, it would be the best sound design of the year. The individual effects, there was a slap. I mean, it's just a slap across the face. You have some crazy action scenes in this movie. It's just a slap. But the way that it carried through the theater and the sound design behind that was awesome. And I found that to be just on a technical level brilliant. Then beyond that, the visuals, the style. Yes, some questionable CGI. Absolutely. Actually, a couple of moments within the CGI that I thought was atrocious. Anytime they try to do an animal in this movie, it looks pretty bad. And then some de-aging at the beginning that I've already mentioned. It's just not good, and I don't know why they couldn't have just gotten an actor for that. Otherwise, the rest of the CGI is good. The backgrounds are good. The world that we're living in is good. The sense of atmosphere here is awesome. Tonally, it works. Stylistically, visually, it works. And this world and these landscapes that they were creating here, you don't get things like that in American movies. You just don't. And I was living in this Zack Snyder-esque visual stylistic world, but it took a step further than that and rooted itself in history, oddly enough. And so you're mixing all of those things together, and you get Kalki, and you get just a really cool experience. There's also a third location where the rebels are in this film, and it's like this futuristic Wakanda-like world, and when we go there and we see this historic setting come to life, it's just so cool. And that is the home of a lot of our battles and fight sequences, and I mean genuinely, some of the hand-to-hand combat, I feel like it could have been shot just a bit better, but when it goes overboard and we get the madness that we get in the third act, one battle, 1v1 that I thought was absolutely magnificent and electric, and where we, leave off with that was just so intriguing, and that's what this movie is. It's intriguing. Now, there's one story point, something that happens, it's spoiler-filled, we'll talk about it in the spoiler review, that I was scratching my head the whole time, and frankly, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me, and so, if you guys can guess what that is, leave it down below.
What? No.
And admittedly, there's a lot going on in this film. So I got over the tone stuff fairly early. It worked for me visually. I was, for the most part, really positive. But there's so much story and so many characters, and a lot of these side characters that work, and they bring the humor, and they bring the grittiness and the darkness. But because there's a lot of it happening in this, 3-hour epic that has an intermission, it can be, and it probably could be overwhelming. If you haven't seen the prelude, which I watched on my other channel, Burke Reacts, please go check that out because it helped me so much. Watch it. Go watch me watch it. You have to watch it. It's almost vital to this experience. So let's wrap this up. We're going to talk more Kalki on this channel, the Movie Mode Podcast, and Burke Reacts. Follow all of those channels, and we're going to be talking a lot about this movie and maybe the future of what this franchise could hold. If you enjoyed it, please, this is your place and space to not only tell me what you thought of this movie, but recommend some more films from India that I should check out on this channel or Burke Reacts. Please do that. This is your place and space to be open, and your support, it means the world to me. Tomorrow, I'm watching A Quiet Place. 2898 is a grand and fantastical epic that combines many familiar elements, yet there's such a distinct feeling to this experience. It was made to be seen on the biggest screen, and Prabhas is incredible. The definition of a movie star, and we talk about that in our podcast about Kalki. He is just really fun to watch, but everyone in this movie is really good. As an ensemble cast, it may be one of the best I've ever seen, right up there with RRR. I saw Manjumel Boys recently, so yeah, definitely check this out and come back. We're going to be talking more Kalki all weekend.